All right, guys. Sorry about the delay. We're now live. Had a little bit of a camera malfunction here, but we're on here. I'm having to go straight through my computer. Hopefully the sound is solid. Let me know if you can't hear anything. But welcome to the MMA Eco Live podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bresnell, coming at you live from beautiful Portland, Oregon. Today is October the 10th, 2024. I've got a lot to get to today. Not only are there some great events going on this weekend in Chinese MMA, but have some normal updates as well, or some, I guess, like personal updates on this as well. So let me first do the, I'll first cover the Chinese MMA section, and then we'll get into all the other stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat as we go. So usually have this stuff already pulled up, but since I was messing with the camera unsuccessfully, I'm just now pulling it up. But this weekend, guys, we've got, and sorry, I've for the last 2 weeks, I've been getting over some just throat and congestion kind of stuff. But yeah, we've got some good events this weekend going down in Chinese MMA. We've got both the JCK event, and we've also got a Happy Elephant event going down in Macau, the freaking Galaxy Arena. Pumped for this event. I don't know why this isn't coming up for me. Maybe if I just search by fighter. Getting these all pulled up in Tapology so I can show you guys these sick fight cards. But yeah, Happy Elephant, they've got an event going down this Saturday from Macau. I don't yet know what the broadcast plans are for this event. Probably at the very least, it'll stream through the through Happy Elephant's Douyin account. If not that, then hopefully there will be something else, even if it's just like a pay-per-view. I mean, I feel like I could definitely see them putting this on like a pay-per-view for just a few bucks, just because it is a bigger event. Let me show you the fight card real quick. It's a really fun one. I've been trying to look up to see what ticket sales are like for this event, because I'm really curious about that and how much they're going for. But I'm not totally, I had some issues finding that information. But yeah, so we've got Happy Elephant, MMA Champions League, rising MMA promotion in China here, and a lot of really top fighters fighting at this event. A lot of eyes are going to be on Liu Tse, a Chinese light heavyweight kickboxer. I'm pretty sure this fight is at light heavyweight. Need to double check that, but he's going to be fighting. The guy's just 2-0, so that's why he's fighting this 3-1 Russian guy named Ivan. Gosh, good luck with that. Gnizditsky. I don't know how you pronounce the G and the N in Russian, but he's fighting this Russian guy. An appropriate fight for this place at his career, just a 3-1 guy. Probably, I'm guessing, going to be a somewhat easy fight for Liu Tse, unless Ivan is, I have no idea what Liu Tse's ground game is like, if he's going to be able to hang. But if he's got a Sonda base, if he's well versed in Sonda, then I'm guessing he probably has some pretty good takedown defense, because there's some of that built into the Sonda martial arts. So that could be an issue for Ivan if that. But the reason that Liu Tse, that he's in the main event over Li Kai-wen or over Tai Laka or over a lot of these other fighters, popular Chinese fighters, is simply because of his kickboxing experience, because he's become a pretty big name in China for Chinese combat sports fans. So that's why he's in the main event. Li Kai-wen fighting this guy Kim Min-woo. That should be, I think this is a great fight for Li Kai-wen at this point in his career. You look at Kim Min-woo, he's a veteran of Double G FC, solid Korean promotion, fights with Korean Zombie MMA. and has an okay record. Really not a whole lot, honestly, to give us a whole lot of information on him, despite being 6-2. This win over this Japanese fellow Shimizu, really your only like high quality win. The rest of these guys, I'm not even really familiar with them from the Korean MMA scene. So if it's somewhat of a mismatch in the favor of Lee Kai Win, not a terrible thing for him. At this point in his career, I feel like it's more importantly to get wins under your belt than to push yourself against the highest level of competition. And I feel like Kim Min Woo is right in between like an evenly matched fight and like an easy win, So I think that's exactly the kind of matchmaking that Lee Kai Win needs right now. And Tailaka Nuaraji, I mean, he's fighting the best guys that can be given to him in his circumstances. When you're just kind of treading water on the Chinese MMA scene, these are the best kind of opponents that you can get. Fighters that are really, really well experienced, internet from another country. And, Alisson Barbosa, despite all the wacky past that he has with his record, some weird stuff there. Overall, he's fought for, just about everyone. He's fought for one. He's fought a lot in China, actually. He may live in China, as far as I'm concerned. You look at a lot of these, it was a lot of Brazilian regional scene, and then there's a ton fighting a lot of top guys in China. So this guy is he's experienced. The record is all over the place. You see here in one, they put him up against a 1-0. That's on one personally. They put him against a 1-0 guy. So yeah, kind of a weird matchup, and I feel like it's going to be another Tailaka easy win, probably by TKO in the first or second round. But at this point, Tailaka is just kind of treading water. You've got this Indian guy, Raham Lula. I'm glad they brought him in. He could be a decent guy from India. Love this fight between Huang Fei'er and Li Yixuan. Could what you could see? Ooh, and I'll get to this in just a second. Is you could see the winner of this fight could be honestly, there's two fights on here, this one and the next one. But both of these winners you could see as strong candidates for the next season of Road to UFC. I was talking to someone this week about the future of Road to UFC and if they're going to do a strawweight tournament next year. Kind of wondering like who would they really choose for that. And at first I felt like they probably wouldn't do it just because there wasn't enough turnover or like new faces. But now that I think about it, there's, I think, a couple fighters that could come back for a strawweight season of Road UFC next year. And then there's also a couple new names like Truk Win, I think would be an excellent choice. Really, the winner of this fight should get chosen for Road to UFC if they do a strawweight tournament. Highlight or against Truk Win. Huang Fei'er was a choice, but then she missed weight. And so she had to drop out, didn't even get to fight. So, she's right there, especially if she gets a win over Li Yixuan. That would be, and then Li Yixuan, if she wins the fight, then she would be, she'd be 6-1, which is pretty good. And she would have a win over someone that was supposed to be on Road to UFC. And she's had a lot of really good, not a lot of women fighters in general and from China like have as many finishes as she does. She started her career with 4 straight finishes, so not bad at all. And just has the one loss against this Uzbek fighter. So she's definitely a talent. I mean, you only have to be like 2-0, 3-1 to get the UFC's attention as a woman in China. And so that she's on their radar. All these fighters definitely on the radar. And then also look at this guy down here, Phan Van Nam. I'm pretty sure that's how the Vietnamese would order it. The last name I think does go first in Vietnam. So it'd be Pham Van Nam. Still working on my Vietnamese pronunciation. There's actually a new Vietnamese promotion called God of Martial Arts, or GMA, and they just had their first event in August, and then they've got one in October and then December. Each one is 3 rounds of a tournament. They have their own weight classes, which is actually kind of a fun idea, where they have like all the weight classes, like the weight classes are like 55 kg, 59 kg, maybe 63 kg, and then somewhere in the like between lightweight and welterweight range. But all the weight classes they've given like eagle weight, cobra weight, tiger weight, and then this one's confusing, bantam weight, but it's not bantam weight. It's like it's got the image of a rooster. I guess bantam to them means a rooster, so it's like rooster weight. And there's 4 tournaments, and the style of it's kind of cool. They have a hexagon shaped, or maybe it's octagonal, a ring. So it's a ring with like 6 or 8 sides, and the ropes of the ring aren't the typical, like, I don't know what they're coated with, like vinyl or something, but they're actual like ropes with like the threads. So they look really, really uncomfortable, but it's a really, really beautiful space that they have. I don't know what the venue is, but it's a beautiful venue. It's cool. You can check out all their events on YouTube. It's God of Martial Arts, but it's a new Vietnamese promotion. You've got that alongside Lion Championship, which is what this guy is from. Yeah, he's got 4 wins. It looks like, yeah, he won the Lion Championship belt and defended it, and then went to this other Vietnamese promotion, Master of Fights Championship, maybe kind of a one-off, and then fought and won at One Friday Fights. So this guy, definitely a Vietnamese flyweight to watch for, and love that he's getting a spot on Happy Elephant. Stay tuned. I will try to update all of you on broadcast plans for Happy Elephant. I definitely intend to watch the whole event. So that's coming at you from Macau. And then I don't know if you guys saw, but the tickets went on sale for UFC Macau in Galaxy Arena, and the ticket prices are actually pretty reasonable. At least if it was happening in the US, the ticket prices are really reasonable. They're like, I think around $50 for the nosebleeds, and then $300, maybe it's a little bit more, but around like $300 will get you cage side. Like some of the best seats that aren't VIP packages are around $300, so really reasonable. If you're at all in the area, I mean, again, it's all relative to where you live and what the economy's like, but that's at least way, way cheaper than the stateside events that have been going on. So that's really encouraging. I'm wondering if they're just like keeping that lower price point to try to sell as many tickets as they can. You know, even like, gosh, this is a whole nother issue, but we'll just talk about it now. The one event that was supposed to be in Atlanta got moved to Bangkok. So they have this event in Denver, right, back in September, and they had a pretty good turnout for it, and they sold a lot more tickets than I thought they would. And it was Jonathan of Kowloon and Kotai that he reached out to the Colorado Commission, and they actually very helpfully gave him the numbers of exactly how many tickets were sold, how many were given away. Yeah, there were about 15 or 1,400 tickets that were given away, but there is a strong, like, around 8,000 tickets that were sold. I did look at the price of those tickets, and they were extremely low. The cheapest tickets to get into the Ball Arena were around $30, not counting fees. So they set whatever they did, they were just trying to sell as many tickets, not necessarily even make a big gate, which they ended up probably making. I wonder if that's like the biggest gate in their history. Simply just because I don't know what they did, but they must have marketed that event really well within Denver and sold a lot of tickets. Now, however, that is actually in contrast to what was going on in Atlanta. So I was monitoring the Atlanta ticket sales, and that event was not selling well. At about 1 month prior to them to the event taking place, so this was like last week when they're still selling tickets. I estimate that they would maybe like sold a third of the available tickets, and the available tickets were just the floor and lower bowl. None of the upper bowl tickets were available, and it looked like they had only sold maybe like a third. So those were not selling well. They were also a lot more expensive. The standard ticket I saw was about $100 some, so a lot more expensive than the Denver tickets, and just wasn't selling. I have to believe that they cited that it was quote partner obligations to move the event to Bangkok, but I feel like there's more to the story than that. They also just were not selling well at all in Atlanta. So a lot of it seems like UFC, if you're just like if you're trying to like get the most that you can out of single customers at the Macau event, then they would be putting things at a much higher price point. But it seems like they're really trying to just get as many people in there as they can, which I think is the right move for Macau. Like, this is not an event that you should be like, we're going to set this like amazing gate number. I feel like where things are in China, you just need to, like, you haven't had an event there in 5 years, and you could be like, yeah, there's all this demand built up, but I say just get as many people in there as you can, pack it out, and give people the best possible experience. You're not quite at the point, like, if you were to sell this event out really, really quickly, then that's another thing. Your next event, you can raise the price point of the tickets, but I don't feel like we're there. I think their last event in China, I don't know if they've actually sold out a Chinese event just yet. So this isn't the time to just like make this an event for just the ultra wealthy. So we'll be watching that, see if they sell out the arena. But we've also got JCK this weekend, and I like this event a lot. When I show you the screen, you'll see why I'm choosing to highlight it, because there's a lot of great prospects here. You've got Aileen Mulata fighting this guy Haishar Alimuhan this is I guess in the semifinal round of this lightweight tournament, JCK. It's not a title fight, even though Aili technically is the champion. It's a 3-round fight plus a 4th round if it's scored a draw. And so looking forward to that. I mean, always looking forward to whenever he fights. That's always exciting. Jung Bochie, he's the flyweight champion of JCK. He beat Buho Yoga, who beat Shang Jifa. So this guy honestly is probably, you could rank him as one of the best flyweights in China right now. Even just looking at his record. Let's just take a look here. Like, he lost against Buho Yoga and then he beat him. So, and that was after they had fought a couple times. They fought once in WLF. They fought another time in JCK. And then he beats him the 3rd or maybe even the 4th time that they fought. But he's also beat 2 really good grapplers in Tsai Xiong and Bianye. So he's definitely ranked up there. He's fighting another top flyweight for sure, Jahar Biekanuar, Chinese Kazakh guy. So that's definitely a big one to watch. Zhou Qiang versus Shang Jifa, 2 other great flyweights. JCK has such a strong flyweight division, and I've loved watching all the parts of this tournament. And this guy, Amin Hali Gumingbai, I feel like could kind of honestly be following in the footsteps of Tai Laka, as like a Chinese Kazakh that just has a penchant for violence. He's kind of been starting to emerge as like as one of those finishers. You look at that record, last 5 fights, all wins, all finishes, and only been to a decision once. That was in his 2nd pro fight. And he's like he's still climbing up in terms of like competition level, but at 6-2, he's right where he needs to be, and he's fighting another guy with a lot of experience. So looking forward to him. Buho Yoga against Nika Don, Enbo guy, flyweight. Again, two great flyweights. And then Cholun, who looks like he's going by Choji Lunjo now instead of Cholun. That's how JCK is billing him on all their stuff going into this fight. So, this is probably obvious to a lot of you, but Cholun and really all the guys that you see on your screen right now, Buhu Yoga, Nigadan, except for Tsai Shongshong, Cholun, Choji Lunjo, and Ihua Aga, Aiding, like these names are not their like birth names. This guy, Cholun, the artist formerly known as Cholun, he's Tibetan, so he was given a Tibetan name at birth, and then it was translated into the Mandarin characters. And so Cholun is just the way that he chose to say his birth Tibetan name. And I guess he feels like Choji Lunjo is more of an accurate way to represent that. I don't know all the ins and outs, the linguistics of that, but that's how he's going by now. And that is most likely just, maybe someone can correct me on that, but I'm guessing this is all one name. And then he has another part of his name that it's not even using at all, just for brevity's sake. But, you have these guys with just the one name, and but then you have like Aiding. So yeah, he's got a first and last name. These guys most likely have first and last names as well, but rather than Aiding, just going by Aiding, he goes by his first and last name. So some interesting linguistic stuff there, but he's going by that perhaps more accurate name now. Tsai Shongshong is a pretty decent grappler, and this is part of the flyweight tournament as well. So I mean, just look at those names in the flyweight tournament. Very, very, not a single name in there that's a pushover. So even this, I think this is maybe like a reserve bout. Even these guys pretty tough. So really like this JCK event. That'll be on their YouTube channel this Saturday. There's something else I was going to touch on, or maybe I covered it all, but I do. A quick update on Road to UFC next year. So I know for sure that Road to UFC is happening for a fourth season. The matchmakers are starting to scout people now for that. I'm guessing that's going to go on even into the spring, just because a lot of fighters have fights scheduled, but they're keeping tabs on people is what I'm saying. And they are, gonna do that again. I don't know which weight classes are exactly confirmed. They're really looking at the whole wide range of fighters that they always have been looking at before. But a lot of that actually, like deciding the tournaments, that depends on who's ready and available and wants to do it, all of that at the actual time of the tournament. So they could have their eye on a couple fighters, but some of those, may not win their next couple fights and get ruled out. So, and that could decide things, especially like if they do a men's lightweight tournament, or if they do a women's strawweight tournament, kind of a little bit more on the bubble. But now that I think about it, I feel more and more confident about them actually doing a strawweight tournament for women again. So that should be going down next May at the Shanghai PI. They would love it if they could do all the rounds of the tournament there, at least just the first two. So be looking for that. Season 4 coming at you May 2025 in Shanghai. So, I'll get to questions in just a second, but today's episode is probably going to be the beginning, probably going to kick off a little bit of a break for me in actually doing this podcast. So, the reason for that, and you all know that like the last month, I've been very hit or miss on podcasts. And some of that has been like, I literally can't because I had other personal things to attend to with like family. I had a funeral a couple weeks ago, things like that. But I've kind of reached a point with my career in MMA media where um, it's at a point where it's like, okay, I give this a lot of time. Not even just the podcast, but just like overall covering the news beat of Korea, Japan, India, Southeast Asia, China, Mongolia, all these things, like keeping track of everything and trying to write articles for things and tweeting out updates, making Instagram posts, even though I haven't done it for a while, making YouTube videos, all of that. It's a lot of time. Not to mention that I work for Tapology and will watch events, put in stuff for them. But I just kind of started to notice that I was, I don't know if I would say like losing passion for the sport, but just like you get into this rhythm of like I am like people. It's really common in our culture to talk about burnout, right? And the way that I would define burnout is I feel like a lot of times when people talk about burnout, it's not actually burnout. It's just you're in like a brief season of busyness and or frustration. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling so burnt out. I feel like burnout happens over a long period of time. Burnout happens when you're making sacrifices over a long period of time and you're not seeing a reward for those sacrifices. So, and because of that, your posture towards your work begins to change. And you can often feel stuck in a rut, frustration, anxiety, apathy. All of these feelings start to set in once you're not seeing a reward for things. And I would not say that that I'm quite there yet. I don't feel like there's really any like there's not a lot of negative emotions that I'm feeling, but something that I am noticing is that watching MMA events for me is basically like, as it's coming up, analyzing like, what does this event have in it for me? And how can I just like pay attention barely enough to to like squeeze the content out that I need? And then, make it into a content factory and then move on. And because of that, there's so little joy in it, and there's very little actual excitement for things. It's just kind of like I'm just showing up and putting in the work and then leaving. So, which is honestly in a lot of ways fine. I mean, in a way, a lot of our jobs are like that, right? It's routine. You show up, you punch a clock, you do satisfactory work and then leave. All of us have periods in our job that require us to approach it like that. But when you're not being compensated, that's a whole different thing. And the thing is that at this point in my MMA career, with what I'm currently doing, I'm not being compensated. Now, Tapology, that's a totally different thing. They pay me really well, and actually, like the payment that we get from Tapology has increased a lot over the last year. And so I'm kind of just like excluding Tapology out of all of that because they're pretty much the only place that I'm getting money right now. And everything else is purely for free or for like pennies. And so I've been doing this for 3.5 years, and it comes to a point like, at what point are you working a part-time job where you're putting in all this work and like creating all this content and not getting paid for it? At what point do you start to like pop the bubble of that? I think you start to go from like, this is really fun. This is like a passion of mine. I do it for the fighters. And if you're not making money, then you're like really willing to like try a lot of things, throw a lot of spaghetti to the wall and see what sticks. And then go from there, hope that you start to make money. But if you don't make money from it, then you're just like overexhausting. So all that to say, like, I've come to a point where I'm like, I really need to be compensated for what I do. It's at a point where I feel like it's reasonable for me to make that a little bit more of a demand. And so because if you get and the reason I feel like that's a really that will help, like, is because, like, if you get paid for something that you really love to do, it means that you don't have to like hustle for things. It means that you don't have to like work 12 hours in a day and get $5 for it. If you get paid well for what you do, then you can work for 3-4 hours and then peace out. It's a little bit easier to make quote sacrifices or put effort into things when you're being taken care of. You have that freedom. So um and so I've hit a point where I've like just questioned, like, should I step away from all of this totally? Should I change what I do? And I think, like, going forward, you'll probably see me, at least for right now, all this could change, but like, you're going to see me really just focus in on Chinese MMA, mostly on like Twitter, maybe a little bit on Instagram. And then for my YouTube, I think what you're going to see is just like making things that are just really, really fun for me. And all of this, I think, is to give myself space to really enjoy the sport as much as I can, because the best work that I can do and the best gift that I can give to all of you is the things that I think are like when I'm having the best possible time. Even though there are things that we have to do in our jobs that are not always fun, but at this point in my MMA career, I think it's smart for me to like scale back and focus on the things that make the most money and then build out from there. That'll allow me to be the happiest that I can be in MMA and produce high quality things and not growing frustrated with the sport. So um, that I would say that's probably part of the reason also why you haven't seen a whole lot from me. Sorry, I've got this. Still got my camera set up, but I should be looking at the webcam that's below it. Um, but yeah, so I'm going to be putting this podcast on pause for a little bit, and gosh, like, so much of my experience in MMA, like my maturation as a media member, has come through this podcast. And it's crazy. Like, it was a couple of weeks ago, like Drake Riggs made the move, or he like basically retired from MMA media, and then he got hired with Uncrowned, which is super cool. And then I saw that like Dan Tom put pause on his protect your neck thing. I was like, gosh, like, it's just like MMA media is just not, it's a rough industry to be able to work, make a good living, and be happy in. And so for me, before I'm ready to just like totally step away from everything and totally shift all my career over to something non-MMA, I do want to try to like at least change some things and see if I can't, like, because I love Chinese MMA. I always love that. Whenever I get into that space, whenever I'm talking about that, I feel like I'm in my happy place, in my zone. I feel like I know so many people in that space. So I love working in that. So I'll stay in that. I think that's smart for me to just condense that. But I will, as far as live streams go, I'm planning on still having those, but just kind of more like off the cuff, like, hey guys, gonna go live, come hang out for a little bit, throw whatever questions you have. Maybe that'll someday be more of a routine kind of thing again. But for now, it's not going to be that. So if that's disappointing to you, sorry about that. Overall, again, I'm doing all of this so that I can have longevity in MMA media. This is me like trying to adapt to how things are right now in MMA media rather than walk away to like hang in there and give you what I can while I'm like still trying to like build up an audience. But you know, when you're just in the space of all I do is watch MMA events so I can just pump out results. And that was kind of where I was getting to, is just like, I don't even care to watch it. Just tell me what the results are so I can post it on my on my sites. That's no fun. Like, that's not the kind of media member that you all want to follow. Someone that's just like phoning it in. So when you're just like so desperate for the last penny, every penny that you can get, eventually that's what can happen. So yeah, it's where we're at with MMA media. But if you guys have any reactions to that, let me know. Or if not, totally cool. But let's see what questions you have. Oh, fun. We have a lot this week. Why have you changed your opinion on the UFC broadcast deals to match that nerd? Changed my opinion on the UFC broadcast deals. I don't know what Tom's saying. Like, I literally I don't follow him. I don't know what he said, but I still feel like having everything in one place in the US is not always the best for consumers. I feel like the best possible deal for everybody would be I feel like uh, the difference between what I feel like the UFC will do, which is cut it up into three pieces. I think what they will do, ESPN, Netflix, and Rumble, what I think would benefit fans the most would be ESPN and Netflix, perhaps. I feel like having a little bit of duality would still benefit fans, because then it's when everything's in the same place, then it's just like, okay, well, now we're just like punching in the numbers, phoning it all in. But when there's some competition between the two of like, we really want Netflix to be happy, we really want ESPN to be happy, then I think you could see the quality of things increasing. But everything in one place, whether you want to call that a monopoly or whatever, like when everything's all in the same place, it doesn't always result for the best possible product for fans, I don't think. You asked Nick Atkin why he changes his opinion on a live stream once he interpreted that as calling him stupid. He accused me of being a troll. Will you hold the same grudge as him? I don't really hold grudges. And I don't know what you're referring to about him changing his opinion on a live stream, but I mean, I change my opinion all the time once I find out new information or just sit and chew on things more. So like, you know, I think if you get into name calling, then that starts to, get into the troll sector. But no, I don't hold grudges, guys. I don't hold grudges at all. You've DM'd Tabitha Ricci. All right. You DM'd her ghost scouting page on Yan Xiaonan. She gave it a like. Instead of talking trash, I have done something productive by helping Yan's opponent win. If Ricci wins or loses, I can sleep peacefully at night knowing that I did everything in my power to make a fighter that I hate loses. Are you disgusted by my actions as a fan of Yan Xiaonan? I mean, that's like, it's public information, those scouting reports. So it's not like, that's something that she and her team could have done. I mean, I accept that this happens all the time in MMA. constantly. So it doesn't get. I've never understood the hate for Yan Xiaonan at all. So um, I will say I don't understand the like the committed intent to like bring her down, just because I don't understand why she's unlikable. And you all have explained it to me, but I just don't. I guess I don't agree, or I don't see it the same way as you all. You all that feel that way, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can message anybody, and especially that's like public information. So, um, you know, power to you. And that kind of information being ready available also puts the pressure on the opposing fighter to improve and fix their own mistakes. So it could be a win-win for everybody. Not sure if you saw the Ray Rod interview with Demetrius Johnson where they discussed the ramifications of funny edits getting KO'd. DJ said that it's good Ray Rod does that because it builds the winner's brand. Do you agree? I doubt that that kind of thing has as much of an effect on a fighter as people think that it does. But a brand, I don't feel like, no, that's not what building a brand is. A brand is like a brand is not the same as a bad reputation. A brand is something that is set by the wielder of power, or by the entity, the company, the individual, whatever. Like, they build their own brand. The company builds their own brand. And if a fighter really like embraces it and makes it part of their personality to like share and appreciate those kind of edits, then that's different. And that is brand building. It builds your brand into a self-deprecating figure. But otherwise, that's just like a reputation that you have. So I don't know that it's I don't know that that's quite what the meaning of that is. And what happened to the Lyoto versus Ili Jati fight that was supposed to happen? That was originally talked about by WLF, but I actually asked someone that would know about that when I was in Las Vegas if that fight was ever going to happen, and they said probably not, just because they, at least right now, are kind of want to like protect both guys, in the sense of like, there's two fighters that we could help develop and kind of like send on an upward trajectory, and so we don't really want to have them fight each other. I kind of disagree with that perspective. I have no aversion to making fighters from the same country fight each other. I feel like, especially at this point in their career, it could bring out the best in each other, because it also, like, as a light heavyweight or a heavyweight in China, it could be the best, like, them fighting each other at this point in their career. Those are the best. That's the best fight within China that they could get, the best opponent that they could get within China. And so I just feel like it would be interesting. And I feel like when you do the country versus country stuff, it feels like there's a lot of extra storylines there. And it doesn't feel like there always is that when they do China versus someone from another country. So it just like, it feels like there's more at stake when they do country versus the same country versus China versus international. At least that's how I feel about that. I get more excited. Like, if they were to match Tai Laka against someone like Ding Meng, I would be so much more excited for that fight than Tai Laka versus like Alisson Barbosa, like they've done at Happy Elephant. And I know that's not really the Chinese way of things. They like putting fighters against international fighters, and I think that has gone both ways of Sometimes they're able to bring in like an actual really good prospect from outside of China, and it makes for a really good fight. It also gives the Chinese fighters different looks and is able to give them valuable experience. But at least at least the equal amount of time on the other end, it means that they bring in fighters that are basically just there to lose and are definitely not it's like they're all they care about is matching up a Chinese fighter against an international fighter, and they don't actually care if the international fighter is any good. So unfortunately, then that's just like record padding, can crushing, whatever you want to call it, and it happens a lot in China. Also, DJ said something really weird, that it's good that people clip parts of his show because it's free advertisement for his YouTube channel, which is a direct contrast to what James Lynch talked about. How do you respond to DJ's assertions that clipping and stealing his clips is good for brands? It probably depends on the brand. I would probably think that, like, if you're someone like DJ that already like, the difference between me and someone like DJ is already a well-known figure. And so when he starts his own YouTube channel, he already has a big audience, and he's got a lot of the means to make well-produced content, all of that. And so he hasn't really, I mean, he's had to build his show, but he hasn't had to like build his reputation and his content the way a lot of the rest of us have that are on the other side of the ladder. So I think if he was not in the media, or if he was in the media, if he wasn't a well-known, really well-established fighter, he may have a different perspective on that if he was trying to like build things from the bottom up. So yeah, I think that's probably a little bit of a difference of perspective there. What do I think of Dan Tom's Protect Your Neck podcast ending last week? To me, it's very sad, but also happy that Dan is leaving such a toxic space where his opinions are constantly being downplayed. I know. I feel that. I mean, guys, something that I did 2 weeks ago is I deleted the Twitter app off of my phone, and that has been such a gift to myself, a huge gift. The other thing that I didn't mention, and I'm distracted from your question. I'll get back to your question, but like, what kind of lifestyle do you want to build for yourself? Being in the MMA media, on the bottom end of things, not making a lot of money, trying to like build up a brand, means that most likely you're going to be on your phone a lot. You're going to be on social media a lot. And you're just, even if you're like me, where you put up a lot of walls of like, you block a ton of people, you mute way more people, you follow a fairly small field of people that you really trust. Even with that, you're still going to be in a lot of toxicity and having to like be exposed to a lot of things that you just do not give a rip about. And then at the same time, you have to be on it because there's news cycle is 24/7. There's hundreds and hundreds of athletes that you're trying to stay in touch with and stay connected to. And like, what kind of lifestyle does that give you? It gives you one where you're always on your phone. Your brain starts to sort of like terraform into the shape of an iPhone or a smartphone, and it makes it a lot harder for you to focus on things. And I've felt that a lot. And probably having like ADHD just magnifies it because just like all of you, I get a dopamine hit from positive interactions of things that I post. And I've gotten a lot better with that, but it's still like just always having things changing every 5 minutes in MMA media. Just like, is that the lifestyle that you really want to have? I want to have a lifestyle where I'm able to move at a slower pace, able to be present with people, able to listen in conversations, I want to have a lifestyle where I can set down my phone and forget that it's there. I want to have a lifestyle where I get lots of sleep, can get outside, get exercise, go for a jog, read books, like all these things. And I just felt like partially because of all the things that I cover all the time and because of how hard I work at everything, it just means that I'm on my phone a lot. And so I deleted my Twitter app, and I haven't noticed any lack of being able to keep up with MMA, but I've noticed a lot more freedom to like be present and take a step away from a lot of the toxicity. So that has been a huge gift to myself. If you all, I would highly recommend everyone try that, even if not just for a week or for a month. But I totally understand just like being like I'm totally with Dan on this. Like, you start to ask yourself, like, why am I always in this space of negativity? Like, we all have difficult things in our job, but like for the things that I can control, like, this is pointless. This is stupid. Like, I want to spend my time in general doing things that are fulfilling, that make me happy, and that I get excited about. If you get to a point where you're just like, man, I got to do this stupid thing again and again and again and again. You can put up with it for a while, but then it comes to a point where it's like, it's not worth it at all. So, yeah, I really support that. And if enough of this happens, like keeps happening, like I don't ever feel like MMA fan base is ever going to become less toxic, unless Twitter closes down and like social media platforms decide to actually like really make their spaces more livable, and that's on them. Then things aren't going to change at all, and you're just going to see more and more of these kind of things happening for sure. Am I familiar with the great pivot discourse happening in the MMA analyst world? I'm not. I don't really follow that stream of things. There's pro pivot people, good MMA analysts, and anti pivot, bad people. The discourse has evolved from pivots don't work in MMA due to takedowns and low kicks and judging Ghost and Miguel class credentials to threats of ending life. And that's why we go back to why media members want to leave the space. You're asking, I see that you're asking if pivots work in MMA. I don't see why they don't. I don't really have the expertise to be able to break that down for you, unfortunately. I'll tell you that it's actually one goal of mine for the future. I have a couple goals, kind of silent goals, that are things that are not going to produce content, at least not right away, but like with this extra space that I'm giving myself to try to like really enjoy the sport more, is I have a couple things that I just want to learn more about. And one of them is just like allowing myself the freedom to explore technical things. So just for the investment that would be in my own self. But why do I think analysts talking about pivots make people angry? Because they don't have a life. Because they don't have a life. Is it because people want to prove how smart they are? It is. They don't have a life and they have really big egos. Is it because people cannot accept that they are wrong? It's because people take social media and this wacky, goofy clown sport way too seriously. It's absurd. It's totally absurd. John Whaley on a recent live chat said that she has just signed a contract for her fight. Do you think that she's going for double champ status since Suarez versus John Jadoba was officially booked? Probably. The only other thing that it could be, which I'd have to do some thinking about this, is if the UFC, and I highly doubt this, but if the UFC signed some big strawweight prospect from outside the organization and are giving her an immediate title shot. just looking at my own internal straw weight, I also keep women's straw weight like global rankings outside the UFC, and I don't feel like there's anyone big enough to do that. Um, so that's probably a no. Yeah, but it's probably going to be a double champ kind of thing, which I've talked about that ad nauseum, how I wish strawweight would shake out, but probably they're going to do Valentina versus Zhang, or they're going to put Zhang against a top flyweight. Like back in the day, we always think that like champions have to immediately fight for the belt in another weight class, but back in the day, it was there were situations where champs from weight classes would go to a different weight class and fight someone outside that. I mean, for crying out loud, Anderson Silva fought against Stephan Bonner, Forrest Griffin, and James Irvin at light heavyweight. He never fought for a light heavyweight belt, and he did all of that while he was the middleweight champion. Very kind of unique situation there, but so I wonder, like, could they do Grasso? They could do Grasso versus. I know she did just fight for 5 rounds, but they could do Grasso versus Zhang. That would be a sick fight. Again, it's not all of this is not like my first preference, but given where we're at, then they could do Grasso versus Zhang. They could do Shevchenko versus Fiorot, but it seems like a huge injustice to Manon Fiorot to not give her the belt, the title shot. I feel like that's the fight that needs to be made at flyweight is Fiorot versus Shevchenko. But they could end up doing it because, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to make Manon Fiorot the backup again 2 times in a row? I would be like livid if I was Manon Fiorot. She was basically, I don't know if she was ever promised a title shot, but she is the clear #1 contender. She's been the backup, and if you don't give her a title shot next, then like that just seems like really, really unfair to her. Saw James mention this on Desi Rip's Discord, but what credentials do you need to become an MMA analyst? None. There's no credentials that you need. Ghost had a long, nuanced response, but essentially he said anyone can do it. It's true. I mean, if you've been watching MMA for a while and you have an analytical mind and you want to try your hand at it, then have at it. He had a long, nuanced response saying that anyone can do it, but the challenge is verbalizing information and presenting it in a way where people can understand it. Yeah, sure. He said anyone can do it, but it is a different story. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't think that there's anything out of step with that. And I have friends that don't really follow MMA, that when I get together with them and watch fights with them, they think that I'm the smartest guy in the world. They're like, have you ever considered doing commentary on fights? Like, have you, and others of them have been like, have you ever thought about being like a coach for fighters? And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, obviously I'm extremely underqualified for that. But like, to them, not knowing anything about the sport, they think that, like, because I'll tell them things to look for. I'm like, hey, this is the game plan. This should be the game plan for this fighter. This should be the game plan for this fighter. And then but this is how I think the fight is going to go. And then it'll go exactly like that. And they're just like blown away. Like, wow, you're a fortune teller. You knew exactly what was going to happen. And I try to tell them that, like, okay, yeah, I can be helpful as like a co-pilot, as a guide to people that haven't watched MMA, but like actually being able to like be helpful for fighters, like actually like the highest level of analysis. Like I'm not cut out for that. Maybe I could be if I gave it more time, but that is not what I feel like my calling or contribution to MMA is. And I feel like there are other parts of MMA that I'm passionate about. But so all that to say is that a lot of it is relative. It's relative to like who your audience is and how much they know about MMA. If you're trying to serve athletes and people that already know a good bit about MMA, then it's going to be really hard to please those folks in terms of like, you do have to give your A game and an overall A game, excuse me, in terms of giving them high level analysis. But yeah, it's all relative. It's all about your audience, how you communicate, all that stuff. Want to build on Jimmy's question with a question of my own. Is analysis in any field not done out of some Dunning-Kruger desire? Not smart enough to know what that is, but fueled by passion for the content to try to appreciate it on new levels rather to be able to spread and inform others. Is it possible to be analytical if you do not excel in the field that you're analyzing in? Great basketball analysts and MMA analysts where we're not always the best in their sport. It's true. Like, and we say this all the time, that just because someone fights in MMA doesn't make them the best analyst. It doesn't make them the best judge. It doesn't make them the best commentator, because there are other skills required other than just it helps. It's valuable. But if you want to be a judge in MMA, it requires a deep understanding of the rule set and the ability to be able to sit and watch two athletes carry out that rule set, and then be able to make a quick judgment without being able to review tape, all of those things. So it's quick thinking. A referee, man, like, again, that requires like an instinctual knowledge of the rule set, not just a deep knowledge, but you have to be able to have it in like a bodily instinct. So, and even more so, quick decisions according to the rule set. Being an analyst requires you to not only, well, sorry, I'm distracted because there's like a massive flock of birds that just flew outside my window. That was really cool. ADHD moment of the day. But yeah, being an analyst really just requires you to be able to ingest and process the technique of the sport, understand it on both a high level and small level. And being a media personality and an analyst requires you to be a good communicator of that knowledge. So yeah, you really don't have to be a fighter. I mean, John Anik, I would say John Gooden, but like he actually spends a lot of time practicing jujitsu. So like a lot of his knowledge does come from that. But there are different ways to analyze things too. Like you're talking about technical analysis, and there's analysis of just being able to talk about what's happening in MMA on a broader level. I analyze what is going on in broader levels in Southeast Asia, East Asia. There's different, and that I think also requires a detail-oriented mind, the ability to make connections between different data points. Not saying I'll always have the best analysis, but there's all types of different analysis for sure. More of a psychological question for you. If someone says something is wrong and called out for mockery, do these people push back even more because it's ego in response to a bunch of people trying to mock that person, or do they need to justify themselves to others? Interesting psychological debate. Yeah. If someone says something wrong and is called out with mockery, do you push back? Do folks push back because it's ego in response? I feel like personally, like I wouldn't say it's always ego. kind of depends on how you respond. If you're trying to make this a firefight, that's one thing. If you feel like you're defending someone else, that's another thing. If you feel like you're defending yourself, like I don't. A line that I have for myself is I really don't even get into like um, fights with people on social media, partially just because I don't feel like I need to defend myself. There's not a whole lot that I feel like I really need to defend because uh, it's social media and I don't really take it seriously most of the time. But yeah, could be. It's hard to tell. It's hard to know people's motives, but yeah. Um, Interesting question. I don't really know how to answer that. It because there's all types of people. There's all kinds of reasons why people get into things on social media, and sometimes you're right, it is ego. But for me to always be able to state that for others feels a little bit like I would be judging them. When I'm assuming to know other people's motives, I think gets into a judgy space that I don't really want to get into. But you could be right on that for sure. Why aren't you monetized? I see you get 500 to 600 views per video. That should profit. No, yeah, it gets a little bit, not a lot. I mean, 5 to 600 views might get you a buck. Um, and and part of why what I'm going to be doing going forward is just like I want to make, and I've already made a list. I've already done some brainstorming of just like um, rather than just being like what I used to do is like, okay, there's an event coming up. I need to crank out a video for it. Whether that's a preview, a fighter spotlight, an attempt at something technical, whatever. Um, I'm gonna be disconnecting from that most of the time, um, unless I feel really passionate or excited about something. But I'm gonna be making videos over what I really want to, and disconnecting that from a timeline. I think of like um the cycle of obligation of like an event's coming up, I need to make this video for it. At least for now, I want to make things that I'm just excited about, are really just fun for me, that I get to take time to craft. Or you may also see me just post 1 minute videos every once in a while. And and the reason why I'm kind of shrinking back and going just on YouTube in that way is because YouTube, of all the things that I do, YouTube by far pays the most. And so I want to, so I do get paid from that. But and to be fair, I haven't really put out YouTube videos. I used to put out YouTube video almost every week. I haven't done that since the fall. And a lot of the reason for that is because I have had some other things go on in personal life that I haven't talked about, that have been a lot of big logistic burdens to carry, to where I was basically like, I don't have the time to like have an aggressive YouTube posting schedule along with everything else that I do. So that's why I did that. And I want to get back to that, but I don't want it to be something where I feel like I have to just crank out weekly videos. Um, and I think that will ultimately lead to me putting out the best quality of things for everyone watching, which will translate into more views, more money. Hopefully that's what it'll mean. And so I am monetized, and YouTube is the best platform, I would even say, over websites and Instagram and Twitter, everything else, to make money. So let's see what happens. Looked up Fediverse, and it's a weird idea because on one hand, it puts all socials into one place, but on the other hand, will the same people from different platforms like the content you put out? I.e., Instagram has a different algorithm than Twitter. And that's the interesting question that I have, is how does the Fediverse work with algorithms? It could still work. So currently on Threads, if you open Threads, which is another app that I deleted off my phone, and I'm better off for it because the web version still exists for these things. But um, so currently on Threads, there's a For You section that combines your selected follows. It combines those with um, combines them with things that the algorithm thinks that you would enjoy. So what I'm wondering is if it does the algorithm in a fully federated social media universe, can the algorithm still look at a post from Blue Sky and put that into your For You feed on Threads? Or is it going to um, only show you a post from a user in Blue Sky if you're following them? So you could follow an account that's hosted on Blue Sky. I'm guessing it'll every algorithm can still have the freedom to be different. If an algorithm says like we prioritize posts that have lots and lots of likes, then we're going to boost those in your algorithm. And say Blue Sky has a different one where it's like, well, it's more about comments, it's more about the interaction on each post than just like strictly like counts. Then we're going to boost those. So hypothetically, there's still room in both algorithms to prioritize the things that the information that's coming in their own way. If you think about it, like for example, Gmail, I use Gmail, and when I open up Gmail on a web browser, it has 3 tabs. It brings in and organizes the information in its own way. It has a what are the tabs? It's like promotions, which is like email newsletters, and what is that? Email newsletters, and like, hey, here's a 50% off coupon for this thing. Has a social tab, which is like it sounds like social media emails, and then it has a primary tab, which is everything else, and it automatically filters things into those 3 tabs. And so it's the same thing. It's just organizing information different. I'm guessing there's no reason why the Fediverse wouldn't be able to do that too. What's your opinion on Uncrowned? Yahoo removed the cancer that is Kevin Iole and replaced it with an all-star cast. Ghost told me that it's good for the sport, but what do you think? My question is, it seems like it's a fairly, I think like overall it'll do well relative to the space. It seems like it's going to have the highest quality of content that is available in MMA media right now. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, it's a all-star list of a lot of my favorite media members. So that won't be a question. My question is getting into the website space with writing. How are they going to do with that? Even like MMA Fighting and MMA Junkie, those are at least like deeply established names, and you like so many fans. I'm wondering how big of an audience with casual fans it is, but just like because of that, like Fighting and Junkie automatically get most of the top spots in a lot of algorithm and like web searches. They automatically get those. They're well known to fans, and so starting a new like vertical website with the articles, all of that, everything that we know about how poorly the Google algorithm is doing its job these days, is it going to be able to have the traffic that they want to do to be able to keep all of these probably well-paid media members on staff? Because that's the thing with like drawing the top level of content, is that they're probably going to be pretty well paid. These are going to be among the most well paid media members in the whole industry, which is great. But and I know they have more than just the web and articles, but they also have Ariel Helwani knows how to do podcasts, video, YouTube, all of that stuff. He's going to bring the A team over to all of that as well. So I don't doubt that they're going to be really successful in a lot of the video space they do. I'm just curious how much like the like web kind of more traditional space is going to go for them is my only question. Do you think Weili's haters will get super angry if she wins the 125 belt in dominant fashion, then kicks the snot out of Suarez? Probably not. I mean, if she's dominant, you know, I don't see what there is to hate. Look forward to trolling her haters because they troll her all the time, even if she wins. I mean, wouldn't they hate her more if she won a questionable decision or a boring decision? If she dominated for the 125 belt and then beat the snot out of Suarez, then probably, I mean, those are things, that's a way to do it that would shut haters up, I would think. But if the things that people don't like about Zhang is that they feel like she doesn't fight enough and whatever else. I don't know. I don't even know these days. Has Kevin Iole phoned it in? I don't even know. I don't read Kevin Iole's stuff. You know, it's so interesting. You know, the only exposure I have to Kevin Iole is post-fight press conferences now. And his style is so interesting of asking questions. And in some ways I was like, I appreciate this in some ways, but in other ways, it's definitely not the style I would do. It seems like a lot of the questions that he asked Dana, it feels like it's the two of them talking in a hallway after the event or before some other time during fight week, because Kevin will ask Dana, in Kevin asking Dana a question, he kind of like states his opinion and then is kind of like, it's very conversational and kind of like, yeah, I really thought this, like, do you agree with that? Or like, it's kind of like he's like, it's a leading question a lot of times. And so in a way it feels very natural and conversative. And I think there's a skill in that comes out of like probably a really comfortable, casual relationship with Dana. But so there's elements of that that I appreciate, but it also, you know, it feels like you're kind of projecting, like asking a little bit of a leading question, rather than just providing space for someone to give their own opinion. But so it's almost like you're asking someone to react against your own opinion, which isn't always, I guess like not all, it's a different style of things. But that's all I hear from Kevin Iole is just at the press conferences. But yes, interesting. You're going to take an extended break. I know I've been too passionate and angry most of the time, but I truly wish you well. A few years ago, you said that having multiple broadcast deals was bad. Okay, no, saying two different things here. Hey, and I'm not going anywhere. You're not going to have the weekly podcast, and there might be a chance a time where I bring them back. I even think about like Luke Thomas. He's gone in and out of having live streams as well, so I'm not worried about that. I don't feel like you can't think of things of like you go like this and then you go like that. You just got to think about like you're flexing, you're moving, you're like water, my friend. You're adapting to your situations, and you know, maybe the podcast will be back, maybe in a much different way and bigger and better. I'll keep doing live streams. I also just like, yeah, maybe someday I'll be able to like build this into something different. So I know that that there would be folks that would be disappointed about things, but what I have learned is that you can't be a people pleaser. As much as I love you guys as much as I have a great time like getting into things with you all, like you can't live your life, especially like career, to please people. And if you feel like you really need to do something and you have a conviction, then you should move on that. And you can think about how it's going to affect people, but ultimately you can't just live your life of like, oh well, I can't do this because people are going to be upset, people are going to be sad about that. um you should consider people, but like ultimately, if you really have a conviction about something, you just need to do it. So um I did definitely like feel bad about like, man, yeah, I don't know, maybe there's a few people out there, some of you all that look forward to it every Thursday, and it's built into your rhythm, and just almost just like Saturday morning cartoons. You just know, like, you show up at a time and place, and I respect that. I love that. And there's those of you that are on this podcast that were on it from like the very beginning, and that just blows my mind that there are some of you that have tuned in for like 50, 60, if not all the episodes. We're around 70 episodes now. And the fact that I could create something that people would want to do, like connect with that regularly, is one of those like holy shit kind of things where you're just like, whoa, like even just like if there were 5 people that bought into this idea and loved what I created, that's worth like stepping back and celebrating and appreciating, and um and just really being grateful for. We all would love it if what we do blows up and is appreciated by thousands of people, but I'm even just like, if 5 people love what I have, guys, like, um so last night, oh, this is so funny. Um, there's actually a band that Drake Riggs got me into this summer, and they came to Portland last night, and I went to their concert. I thought, based on, they have a big social media following, based on their following, I thought that there was going to be like 500 to 1,000 people at this show. I thought it was going to be huge. But it was the first time that they've ever been to Portland, and they're actually, I guess they are a newer band. And literally when it was time for the concert to start, 2 people, including me, 3 people. It was totally dead, and I was like, dude, what do you actually do at a concert where there's only 2 people there? Like, is it the same as if there was 1,000? It was crazy. And eventually more people showed up, but there was still like, there was one band, and then the band I came to see was after that. There's probably like 50 people there, but I know they're from the East Coast, and I know they've played in front of thousands of people on the East Coast. And they both of the bands, the first band was just like, we literally don't care how many people are here. Like, we don't care if there's 10 people or 1,000. It's going to be the exact same show. And the band that I came to see, they they left it all on the table. It was really fun because like, with just 50 people there, like, I could get really close to the stage. Like, a lot of frustrating things about going to a show. And then like afterwards, I got to like hang out and talk to them for a little bit and be like, oh yeah, Drake Riggs sent me. But um, they just like afterwards were just losing their shit that people would come to their show in Portland. Like, they were so excited and friendly, and just like asked everybody's name. Everyone that came up to him, they asked for their name and just like shook their hand, and were just like you're meeting the president of your country. You might as well have been. And that was so fun and cool to see. And that's honestly how I feel about doing this, of just like, especially when I'm live and I get like more like actual live feedback from you all. Like, I really don't care if there's 5 people on here. Never have. And Especially like the fact that 5 people would take time out of their schedule to watch. If one person took time out of their schedule to watch, even if they don't drop comments, I'm grateful for that. So you all the best. A few weeks ago, you said that having multiple broadcast deals was bad. Now saying that ESPN and Netflix is good, but I've heard it's going to make a diluted product even worse if they branch out. I think that if they branch out too much, I think that there is a level of like, I think the reason why I changed my mind is just because I thought about it more. I think that having 2 partners is the best. Because I was talking to someone. The reason why I changed my mind was because I was actually talking to a different sports fan of a different sport, and in a small group, and all of them were all like, "Oh yeah, it's totally better for the consumer if the uh, if things are split up." And the objection that I raised was like, well, doesn't that just mean that you have to pay for multiple streaming services instead of just one? And I think there's a couple ways you can look at it of like, if you're a fan of lots of sports, then it is definitely better for you if you're already watching other sports, because then you may not even be having to like pay a whole lot more. If you're someone like me who only watches MMA and no other sports, I get ESPN only for UFC and PFL. If I were to, I don't even have like Max. So if I want to watch Bellator, I've got to like do a trial for Max or just pay for a month of it. And it's the same with every other MMA thing. Like Amazon Prime is the one thing that's like, I already have that. I'm using Netflix from someone else. I won't say who, but in case someone from Netflix is watching this. But so yeah, if you already have the things, it's great. But if you only watch MMA, then it may be worse. That's why I feel like if you're going, 3 would be the thing where I'm like, dude, I don't want to pay for 3 things. But 2, I think, is a good one, because then there's at least a duality of ping ponging back and forth, where I think it could cause the quality to rise. And I'll also comment like, sometimes competition. My friends argued that competition between different streaming services helps to keep the price lower. I don't know if that's totally true or not, but I think having just like the rest of the world, when there's a monopoly, the quality and consumer experience drops. I also think that's true when so for example, like if the UFC is going in between 2 people, both of these companies are bidding back and forth saying, we'll give you this many $1 million, we'll give you this many $1 million. And the longer that happens, the more money the UFC is going to get, and the quality of whatever the UFC could give, I think, would increase. So I feel like having competition between multiple brands would probably drive up the quality of for the consumer. I think. I don't know how that would work with UFC and MMA, but it seems to be with other sports that's true. And I know I'm not really giving a whole lot of evidence to support why I think that, but I wonder if the UFC was trying to please 2 different entities, and the different entities were saying like, we want this certain quality on our events that we put on Netflix. If we're putting on 10 events on Netflix a year, those need to be a certain quality. Meanwhile, you've got ESPN over here saying like, well, we also want to put fights on big ESPN, so we want that too. So I want, there's different ways it can go. I'm not saying it's a net. It's always going to be a net. It can go different ways, but I feel like there's more working in the favor of a better consumer experience and product if there's at least 2 different parties. Told you why I hate Yan Chonan. Trash talk Whaley for half a year, which I've ignored despite evidence and interviews. The funny stuff Ghost and Jack's post about she's not good. Heavy hands even said on Whaley's worst night, she still dominated Yan for 4 rounds just because Yan had one good round. I guess a champion doesn't mean make her good because she still lost. I mean, yeah, I still feel like I see some of those things, not everything. Some things I would agree with you about, but some of those things I have different perspectives on, I think, than you all. But you know, it is what it is. I'm never going to be able to convince you otherwise, and I don't know that you're going to be able to convince me otherwise. And so we'll just have to shake hands that we see the situation differently. Since the show is ending, what do you think of Sound and Pound's lighthearted style versus this show's more deep cut conversations? Well, that I think comes from having a co-host. I think if it's hard to banter with people if you don't have someone to banter with. So if I had someone else on here, I'm sure we would probably get to that level. You all don't really see it, but in real life, like, I'm a very sarcastic person. I love to banter with people, and I feel like I'm always just a half step away from making everything into a joke. So you all don't really get to see like my sense of humor coming out on this show, and that's just simply because it's just me. But I love that. I love their style for sure. I think sometimes it's good to take a break from MMA. I want to say thanks for allowing me to mod this chat. Hopefully it's not too long, but genuinely want to wish you well. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all of your all the work that you've done as well. Obviously, there's probably a lot that's gone on behind the scenes that I'm not even aware of because I'm just focused on, just this, answering the questions, giving my own content. So I appreciate you, Jimmy, so much. And there, you're right. Like it is healthy. Like I'm familiar with with a community. There's a cycle of community of like what a healthy community is. And it's not just about like a healthy community or healthy family isn't just times are always good and healthy. There's a cycle of like, there's a honeymoon phase to creating norms, to creating apathy, or I think it's honeymoon to apathy, to frustration, to potentially taking a break. And then, but otherwise, frustration can lead to acceptance of like acceptance, meaning this is something that we need to work through. And then I forget the word, but then it's like, then acceptance leads to like healing and then back to health. And then eventually that health leads you to a honeymoon phase and the circle site starts all over again. The point I want to draw from that is that something being healthy and in a good place doesn't always mean that you're just like going in a steady straight line or like up and to the left. A lot of times taking a break is actually what's healthiest and will ensure whatever thing you're a part of, what your business is, it'll ensure you greater longevity and greater health because it allows you to work through problems, address things that aren't working. So I agree. I appreciate that. Slack said that he'll no longer be looking at comments under his posts due to the dumb things that people say. Has it made him gain back his love of fights? He said it made him gain back his love of fights. Will you do that? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not the kind of job like working at a bank. Like you don't get into MMA media to make ends meet. You get into MMA media because you're passionate about MMA. So if you become someone that's like totally unpassionate about MMA, then like that's when it's time for you to do something like take a break or quit the sport altogether. Because if there has to be a level of passion that sustains things, and the heart of that passion has to be the fights, right? Like if you don't like watching fights anymore at all, and that goes on for a long time, then like literally, what are you doing? That's a weird space. Now, you could be working for, a promotion, UFC PFL 1, where it's like you're in production, or you do this web thing, or this admin kind of thing. Like, but if you're on the media side, if you've got kind of a public personality, then there needs to be some level of passion. And you, as a media member, you need to think about that, and you need to safeguard that passion. And you need to think about, what can I do to protect that passion? If it's not looking at comments because of what people say makes me frustrated, then maybe that's what you need to do. If it's like me, you need to like take a step back from a lot of things. Then to protect that passion, that's what you need to do. By the way, Ghost Scouting Report is actually no longer public information since X has copyright strike them. Well, there you go. If you want to build on the great pivot debate, do you think the top 10 analysts in the MMA space mocking the anti-pivot people with memes is just fanning the flames? Probably. There's not, I would say it's definitely part of MMA culture to fight back and defend yourself. When you're struck, there's not a lot of like, oh, someone struck me and I'm just gonna like turn the other cheek. Like, that's not really what people do. So yeah, probably just fanning the flames. What do I think about MMA media that do interviews like Kevin K? I looked at his interviews and they were bad, just because it seems like he was just copying James Lynch and not genuine. I mean, we all have to get inspiration from somewhere, and asking, at some point you're going to ask some of the same questions, but at the same time, it's, as a media member, part of what you want to do is listen to the other interviews that they've done, that the athlete figure has done with others. And so, like, to cover some new ground, you can ask people, hey, how are you doing? Or what do you think about your upcoming opponent? Sure, you can I think it's fine to ask some of those basic questions, but ultimately you do need to be writing your own questions and thinking through the things that are interesting to you as a media member, and then just seeing that as a conversation space with the athlete. A lot of times I try to connect to the athletes on my China experience, because I find that sometimes helps them to open up a little bit. If I get into, like, if I start nerding out with an athlete about a Chinese local food, then I feel like that lightens the mood a little bit. It allows me to offer something that not many people have in the media space. It's fun for the fighter, and it also helps fans to get to see some like Chinese culture, or get to see a different side of the fighter. So it's fun going on those little rabbit trails, but it's something that you can both ask off the cuff, and sometimes you can plan those questions and make them seem like they're off the cuff, but you just have to be really natural with it. I'm also sad this podcast is going on hiatus. Might not agree with everything you say, but you do your best to answer all of us. So thanks. There we go. Yeah, not a space for conformity and total agreement, but hopefully a space for conversation. And look for future just live streams. Obviously I've got all the tech right here, and there's nothing stopping me from just hitting live. So, and that'll also allow me to even like bring in some new people, because I can do it at different times of the day. So, yeah, that could be fun too. What do I think of the blue tick system on Twitter next? I think it's really stupid. Why not make a different symbol for monetization on Twitter, like the X logo, but keep the blue tick for verified users? I fully agree. I feel like the old system of verifying people based on notoriety was a good system. I really do feel like that was a good system. I don't know, it's like, at the same time, it's good to have identity verification for people, and to have that show. I don't know. I haven't really thought about this a whole lot because I think that doesn't like Meta has there's like a business suite that you can have where it's like, hey, I want to monetize my social media account. That feels like it should be something totally different than like identity verification and notoriety, all of that. Um, so maybe there's like with identity verification, there's like two tiers of that's like both, and I feel like that should either be a one-time cost uh or a free thing to either just like verify your identity. Like a lot of Chinese social networks do that. When you sign up for the app, there's an identity verification. It's not an extra tier. Um, so I feel like that is a basic thing with social media that could improve it all the way around if you just require everyone to verify their identity. But then maybe that's like a yellow check that everyone has, and then the blue check is for notable people. I don't know why that. Maybe as I think through that argument starts to come apart a little bit. Why you would have to have something for notable people. Why not just verify everyone's identity? But if everyone's identity is verified, then you probably don't even need a symbol if it's a baseline. So I say, there you go. Just baseline verify everyone's identity and then have an extra tier for like a business tier or creator tier to help people get monetized and have different tools. So that's what I feel would be better. What do I think of MMA Mania removing all of Drake Riggs' Broaden Horizons episodes out of spite just because Drake joined Uncrowned? I guess that was interesting because my question was like, it gets kind of interesting because it's like, if you work for a company and then that company commissions you to do a series and then you give it its own brand, does that series then belong to the creator or to the brand? I thought it was really, even if Broadened Horizon does belong to MMA Mania, there's literally no reason to take it down. I guess my question was was Drake getting a lot of the royalties for the views for that, or was that already going to MMA Mania? Because if it's all going to MMA, or they splitting it, or is there an agreement where they would split it? I don't know what really motivated that, but it probably went down to like who owns this and who benefits from this still being there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you would just take something down out of spite. It seems really, really pointless. Literally, what's the point? It doesn't, I don't see how that hurts your brand by being like, hey, someone that worked for us now works for one of the most prestigious MMA media companies, but their content is still all on our channel. I don't see how, because if Drake just like gets to be a bigger and bigger personality, then more and more people are going to watch those old videos and that benefits you. So I don't know. I have no idea. I can't even begin to understand why you would do that. Mentioned Morning Combat. I find that show unwatchable because of the bad takes of Brian Campbell. I don't understand how it has such a large viewership. So Morning Combat, yeah, why that show is so big is because it's entertaining. It's an entertaining show. Part of the draw of that show is the polarized differences between Luke and Brian in so many ways, in opinion, in personality, and in expertise. Very different personalities. And so because of that, the banter, the back and forth, the chemistry between these two is so interesting and fun. And that's what makes the show. But at the same time, there's enough, like, these guys are so good. They get into the topics, and they're both incredible communicators. Both Brian Campbell, like, so many things about what Brian Campbell is good at are things that are like things like being a good analyst are things that I think really quickly, like, people can really see that and be like, wow, really, really talented. What people don't often give credit to is how well you're able to communicate an idea on air, how well you're able to carry through a personality and and fill a space. Brian Campbell is so good at filling a space. I don't like a lot of things he says. I don't agree with either, but it's like for Luke, if you're someone like Luke Thomas, you're looking for a partner. You're not looking for someone that agrees with you on all the same stuff, because otherwise, what kind of show do you have? You're just having two guys that are just like, yeah, I agree, I agree, I agree. If you have some disagreement, some different opinions, then that's a show. Then you have dialogue, discussion. You have some heated debates that come up, and Brian, he does have an expertise. He knows a lot about the combat sports industry, and his background is more in boxing than in MMA. So, and he knows a lot of like the other like intangible stuff around the fight game. He also knows a lot about pro wrestling. So I think that he is phenomenal, to be honest. Even though I disagree with a lot of stuff that he says. Again, there's more to being a media member than being an analyst. Being able to just like be the B-side in a debate, I think, is really valuable. When I was first getting to know, like when I remember like years ago when Brian Campbell first came on the show, I didn't like him either, because I was like, some of the stuff you say is really, really dumb. But as I got to know him better, I started to see where his talent really is and how good of a fit he is for Luke Thomas, of just being kind of an oppositional force. And that often like brings out a lot of really entertaining debate. And then, I mean, there's the, have you seen this shit stuff? There's like a lot of stuff on the show that's just like purely meaningless, just really, really fun stuff. Have you seen this shit? DMs from donks. Like they have a fun brand, and there's things that are different than other shows. If you want debate, there's that. If you want some depth of conversation, there's that. If you want big personalities, there's that. And if you just want fun, silly stuff on there too, there's that. So there's, and also just like recapping what is happening as well. So it's kind of got it all. And both of those guys, I think, are really, really talented. And so, yeah, I think Brian brings a lot of really good energy. So for sure. I love Morning Combat. Would you be interested in joining the Nuzzy Rips Discord that Drake and his friend Tanner run? There's an MMA section where most of us just annoy ghosts with technique questions. I haven't checked that out yet. I thought that was I thought that Drake, that Nuzzy Rips was I haven't checked it out, to be honest, but I thought it was a like trading card thing. So that's why I'm not, and I'm not on Discord either. I'm such a bad media member. I'm like not on all these things, but no, sounds fun. When GSP barely beat Johnny Hendricks, did people get mad at the time? Because now Hendricks is just a footnote in GSP's legendary career. Is that how all wins and losses on the record age? They just become a footnote in the career. You know, that's interesting that you bring that up. At the time, we didn't know that Johnny Hendricks was going to have just like an abomination of a career nosedive. He was at that time, he was a great wrestler with heavy hands, and he was the #1 contender. And so people were really, really mad about that. I do remember that. And it wasn't even a fans of GSP versus fans of Johnny Hendricks thing. It was just outrage at the decision. I remember when I watched it, I thought that GSP won the fight narrowly, even though he had more damage on his face. Granted, that was 11 years ago, and if I rewatch the fight, I might think totally different now. So, but yeah, 11 years ago, I felt like GSP won the fight, but I remember people being really, really mad about it. And Dana White was really livid about it. And it was kind of like Hendricks caused a lot of damage in these, like 2 rounds, but then GSP like narrowly won the other 3 rounds. But people were like, it seemed like people were making the argument that because Hendricks caused more damage in those few rounds that he should have won the fight, but that's not how fights are scored. And so it felt like I felt like, and again, I could change my whole mind if I rewatch the fight. I haven't watched it since then, but yeah, people were really mad about it. They felt like there were people that were like, this is one of the worst decisions of all time. Okay. Split decision, really close fight. I don't feel like you could be mad about it. But yeah, a lot of outrage. And now in hindsight, it's like, well, Hendricks didn't end up being much great. He had a great fight with Robbie Lawler after that. Really great fight. And then lost the rematch. But yeah, I think if Johnny Hendricks would have been more after that, then people would have seen that differently. But I don't know that people that, I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that still feel the same way, that Hendricks should have won the fight. But it is a footnote for sure. Were I ever a fan of The Office? Absolutely. One of my favorite shows. I know that's the most like basic white guy millennial thing, but I love The Office. I've watched it through several times. When I started watching The Office, I think season 4 was airing. So closer to the beginning of it, and love the show. Even today for lunch, over my lunch break, I will watch like compilation clips online. Fantastic show. Obviously, lots of opinions on the show. And I think like, especially, so like my roommate hasn't watched the show yet. He's only watched clips online, which I'm like, man, that's not really the best way to watch a show, because you don't really get the plot, but at least enough to get you hooked if you're just watching the funniest bits. But eventually we do want to go through it together. And what I feel like The Office is, it's just like, if you've worked in an office culture, they just like so perfectly captured a parody of the typical American white collar middle class working experience so well. And it's so, all the people in there are caricatures of people that you already know at your office. And so yeah, but it's like, this is your office, but if things were like going off the rails, basically. So it tapped into that deep psyche, that it was so relatable, and to just like normal people, But yeah, fantastic show. Do you think some people try to get interviews with fighters but get turned down by said fighters, holding grudges towards that fighter? I see it seep in the way they pick fights. It could be. I mean, I don't know how much it would affect people picking fights. If you're a good media member, then everything is totally, if you're picking a fight, then you totally disconnect. You have to totally disconnect all of your attachments to a fighter, and look at things as objectively as you can. You also cannot base, if you know a lot about the skill of one such fighter, then, and you don't know a lot about the skills of another fighter, you have to also admit that that gives you a bias towards that fighter. For example, like if you looking at this weekend, there's a lot of fighters that I'm like, well, I know about this fighter, but not that fighter. And I have to, I can still pick, I can still pick my fighter because I'll look at people's records and sometimes just make that gut level pick. But like, you also just have to acknowledge that you don't know what you don't know. So, um, but I definitely could see people holding grudges, whether towards the fighter or towards their management, because a lot of fighters and managements can act very unreasonably, and they immediately hold grudges that are they sometimes hold grudges against people because they're like, well, you picked against my fighter. Like, okay, well, I'm an analyst, sorry, I have to pick a winner in every fight and a loser in every fight. So yeah, let's see. I am gonna gosh, 6:02. I've got to pop out here in just a minute, but just to hit on this real quick, we'll be focused on reels and short clips. I may do some short clips, but I don't really know if I'm going to get into the reels game. We'll see. I'm probably not going to be on Instagram a whole lot. Probably mostly on YouTube. I don't really know if I don't want to, like, it doesn't excite me to build a brand out of YouTube shorts right now. So I may just like turn on the camera and just do like 1.5, 2-minute long opinion things, or just like quick reactions, things that are just really easy to make. But the shorts thing doesn't really excite me a whole lot. Want to wish you well. Podcast has made you a better fan. All right. Well, then mission accomplished. And it's done the same for me. It really has. Like, I know you say weird things sometimes, but I genuinely enjoy this podcast. Good deal. Thanks for all. I gotta duck out, guys. But so sorry to not answer the last couple, but yeah, the thing that what I have benefited from, like I have benefited so much from being on this podcast, and I've benefited specifically from you all, and just like it's helped me to tap into a lot of things. First of all, it's helped me to get a pulse on a lot of things that people care about, and to know like, oh, people have really strong opinions about this, or, oh, people would like to know more about this. Good to know. And it's helped me to also process the psyche of the MMA fan. It's helped me to process through a lot of that deep stuff. And sometimes you'll ask me a question and I'm verbally processing it for myself, just to know about yeah, like, oh, I don't know what I think about that. Let me verbally process that. And you all will call me out on changing my opinion. And I'm just like, well, I'm a human being. My knowledge and opinion on things are unfolding just like all of you all, as I think about things and chew on things, which this has been in a lot of ways my space to chew on things as well. So I love that. And even as I feel like it's right for me to put this on hiatus, I will miss that a whole lot, of just because like I just don't have people that I can process these things with most of the time. And that's why I'm still going to do some live stuff going forward. Is just like, I still want some of that space to be able to chew on things together in community. So you guys are great. Appreciate everything that you all have given me. I feel like I've gained a lot more probably than you all have from me. So see you soon and have a great evening. Hopefully we all can catch Happy Elephant, and we got the UFC event to retire fighting against Roybal this weekend. More to come from me, but for now, signing off from Portland, Oregon. Have a good evening.